And everybody, welcome to another edition of Hogville.net YouTube Live's show, the Razorback Football Report with Otis Kirk. I'm your host, Jason Pattyson. And everybody, I want to thank John James for all the incredible shots that he provided to us for that opening, and also Pixabay for the music that they provided for us today. So without any further ado, Otis, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
It's game week, and I'm going to tell you this. It's like Christmas all over again. You know, you've had that long wait since the end of December and first part of January, and now it's here.
Yeah. I'm ready for the games instead of practice. You know, I'm tired of writing about practice. I like to write about what I see, not what I'm told. And we've been writing about what we've been told by the coaches, assistants, and head coach and players. But now we'll get a chance Saturday to actually talk and write about what we see. I mean, we'll still write what they say and stuff, but we also can kind of mix it in with what we've seen. So I enjoy doing that. I enjoy seeing it for myself. And that way, if I feel like cornerbacks are better, I can say so. You know, it's right now we're just taking the words of the coaches and it's just better when you can see it and still mix in respect what they say because they're the pros at this, but I do like the fact to see for myself.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, it's nice to be able to see these players get into these live game situations and see how they were going to react, because the coaches don't even know how they're going to react until some of these guys that they haven't really seen in live game action for themselves on the same team, how they're going to operate. And so it's kind of an opening that very first Christmas present out from under the tree for us and for the coaches, because now they don't know quite what to expect, but it's a gift because now, the real thing is here.
Yeah, you turn on the lights. Sometimes players get better. Sometimes they don't. They get worse. But, that's what you want to see. And the only way to know that and see it is for it to happen, And I remember Matt Jones looked awful at practice. But when you turn on the lights and put him on the field, he was a monster, man. I mean, he was a man. So that's why I say there's examples. And there's been guys that look great in practice, get them in the game, and they kind of disappear or, don't look the same. So that's what you're looking for. And as you said, the coaches don't even know that on players that they haven't coached. And every year is a different year. And I feel good about this football team, but we'll see. I mean, you just never know. I mean, they're like most teams, but I feel good about them because they've got an experienced quarterback, not just an experienced quarterback, but a talented one. Mm-hmm. Got running backs stable there. I like the receivers. I just feel like, this team reminds me a lot of the 2015 team, not because of Dan Enos, but because of the situation similar. A lot of things are similar to that team. The difference is they had a great offensive line. This offensive line is not as proven, and how this offensive line pans out may determine if they're as good as that 2015 team or better, because I think in a lot of ways they're better than that team was, but the offensive line is where that team had the advantage right now. Now, Andrew Chamley, Devon Manuel, Imarian Harris, the other kids. I mean, Ty Keys, Patrick Kudus. I mean, how they turn out, help determine. And that's the thing. I mean, there's a difference between not having talent and not having experience. And with those guys, the problem is they don't have the experience. I think they've got the talent. And the only way you get experience is put them out there, Jason, and let them play. I mean, you can practice all you want, but to get game experience, the only way to get it is put them out there in the game. And every kid, I mean, Bo Limmer and Brady Latham a few years ago didn't have game experience either. Neither did Ricky Stromberg or Luke Jones, Dalton Wagner. I mean, the only way to get there is put them out there and let them play. And but if you don't have any talent, and you say, man, that's the lesser of the two evils. Put those guys out there. That's not what the case with these guys. I think they're very talented. They just don't have experience. But I think they will start getting that Saturday, the following Saturday, and by the time they go to LSU, they will have 3 games under their belt, but we'll see how this line does. But I think it's going to be okay. But we'll see that. We'll see how they turn out. But I looked at Amari and Harris come in there in the Liberty Bowl, and they didn't miss a beat. I mean, he started. He didn't start. I'm sorry. Tykees Crawford started there at right guard, got hurt. Then Amari and Kieran, and looked good. And they put up a bunch of points, a bunch of yardage that night. And the offensive line played well. So I like the team. We'll see how they do come Saturday, and then each Saturday forward for a while.
Yeah, a couple others that are also making their case to get into that starting 5 rotation, like you had mentioned, with Devin Emmanuel and also with Amari Harris, also with Andrew Chambly, is Amari Wiggins. He's another guy that's made a case for himself. And so Sam, I think, has got about 7 or 8 guys, him and Cody both have got 7 or 8 guys that they can kind of pick and choose from, and making sure that if they're tackles, they can also play guard, but if they're playing guard, they can also snap. And so I think that's where they're trying to kind of figure out exactly where all those guys fit. Also, a quick note too, if you guys have comments, throw those up. We'll put them on the screen. John Everett, hey guys, love the show. Thanks for joining. And also Jay Carpenter. I'm going to show this one really quick. He's reluctantly optimistic about the defense this year.
I like the depth on defense. I do like that. I like the coaching staff better than the one last year. But I like the depth on defense. They've got more depth on defense than they had last. This people talking about the defensive line. They've talked about the defensive line past. They didn't have 11 or 12 players like this one does that can really play. I mean, they've got 10, 11 deep over there on that defensive line. 12 maybe. Linebackers, I love Poopaw Crook. I love the 2 transfers and younger players too there. But I in the secondary, I think getting Jaheim Singletary, Snacks Johnson, and Al Walcott from transfer portal was huge. Dwight McLaughlin's back. Hudson Clark is back. I think that's your 5 starters. Then you got guys like Jaden Johnson, Malik Chavis, Ladarius Bishop. I love the 2 freshmen, Jalen Braxton and TJ Metcalf. The Jalen Lewis at the Hog.
Hog,
They've got some depth back there. I mean, the transfer from TCU, Stewart. So, I mean, I think they're pretty good shape back. I think that the defense should be good. I like the philosophy, if nothing else. The aggressive style of defense, 4-man front opposed to 3, more aggressive defense. Yeah, you're going to get burned on occasion, but, I mean, they finished the last defense in a lot of categories last year, so maybe they didn't get burned as much as they just gave up chunks of yardage. But, I mean, I like this style of defense a lot better. I honestly think they've got better coaching this year for the most part. Not that those guys were bad coaches. I just feel like this fits what Arkansas can do better. We'll see. I mean, they haven't played a game, so it's easy to praise these guys now. But, if the defense comes out there and gives up 800 yards on Saturday, we'll have a different tune. But I'll be surprised. I think this is a very good defense, or at least an improved defense. I shouldn't say very good. I think it's a very much improved defense over last year, if it's as good as I think it is.
And just from my perspective, too, is that I see that the sheer personnel turnover from a defensive backfield that for the last 2 seasons have given up huge numbers in multiple games. And now you're starting to see where there's not as many of those guys. I mean, for right now, honestly, 1 in Hudson Clark. Other than that, you've got guys that have transferred in to put back there in the defensive backfield. And to me, that signals that this team has changed where I think we're going to be changing more for the better. I'm not saying that the guys that we had were horrible. I'm just saying that they've upgraded that talent on the back end of that defense. And I really am inspired by like the chemistry and also the philosophy. Another thing from John Everett says one thing stands out is the player interviews is the team chemistry, and they seem to be fans of one another. Do you see that, Otis?
Yeah, I do. I mean, but so much of the preseason talk is always that way. It's all positive and stuff. What you want to see, the chemistry and stuff, is when you face adversity. I mean, when you haven't played a game and you're out there practicing, it's easy to praise your teammates and stuff. But how do you react to adversity? And there will be adversity. But yeah, I do think that's the case this year. I mean, the players have. One thing I heard people knocking about the football team was the fact so many players left last year after the season, especially the secondary. Well, I mean,
addition by subtraction, right there.
Yeah, I don't know how that hurt the team. I mean, most of those guys were part of the group that was getting burnt and couldn't stop anybody, and I don't know how that was a negative. As I said, I really like the additions of. It's too bad McAdoo can't play because I thought he was really good. Right, he was really good. I wasn't just. But McLaughlin, Clark, I mean, as you said, Clark is the one guy, maybe Jaden Johnson that they recruited that is up there. But, and then, of course, Jalen Braxton and T.J. Metcalf. But the rest of a lot of those other guys transfers and are playing. And I like the fact. I think one thing Arkansas has done a good job of, and it's not just talking about on defense, it's talking about as a team. One thing I think the Razorbacks have done a very good job of since the portal, I think they've always upgraded over what they lost. I mean, here's what I'm saying. I think every year they have lost players, and they've lost some good ones. They've lost Greg Brooks, Joe Fauché, they've lost Trey Knox. But every year as a whole, I think they have upgraded. And I think the one thing that allows you to do, it allows you to avoid big rebuilding jobs. I mean, you can reload instead of rebuild so much. When you used to, you had to rely on JUCO kids more. And I know they like Amari Wiggins, but it's a lot of difference in taking one offensive lineman from JUCO than taking about 10 JUCO players. The rest of these kids came from the portal. So, because it was hit and miss on JUCO kids. It always was at every position, really hit and miss. And but for the portal, for the most part, man, they signed last year. Braithwaite, AJ Braithwaite left, and he was going to be about third or fourth string. But the rest of those kids, they've hit on every one of them. I mean, every single one. The rest of those kids, I predicted the depth chart the other day, a week or two back, and every kid on that transferred in was mentioned. I mean, you look at it and they're all, Marquise Gomes, Francis Sherman, Jacoby Criswell. Josh Braun. It just seemed like they hit on all those, to be in the, if they're not starting, it looks like all of them's going to be in the top two for the most part. I mean, I can't, somebody said something about Greer, and I said, but he's been hurt. That's why he hasn't been mentioned much. Antonio had an injury. Pittman finally commented on it, but he'd been out for a while, and that's why he wasn't being mentioned, because he was out with an injury. But Jaheim Thomas, Greer, both can play. We talked about the secondary, those guys like Singletary and Stewart and Walcott and Snacks.
Yeah.
And then the four defensive linemen, those are all proven guys. I mean, see where Jeff Coates, one of the captains. I love Kiwi Rose and Tank Booker.
Tank Booker, yep.
Morgan's a good pass rusher, certainly can help in that situation. You had like Landon Jackson. Hey, it hurt to lose both Jay and Brooks to LSU, but would you trade Landon Jackson and Dwight McLaughlin for them? I mean,
every day plus again, every day.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at what LSU. You got Dwight McLaughlin, you got Landon Jackson, and you lost two good ones, but you got two good ones. So, I mean, and that's what Arkansas has been able to do. They've, you lose Trey Knox, but you get Marquise Gomes. I mean, it just seems like they don't take a step back out. They lose players to portal but they don't take a step back. Even if they don't take a step forward, they certainly don't lose any ground there. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you for sure that that Barkeith Scums is better than Trey Knox. We saw what Trey Knox could do, but I think he has a chance to be. But the bottom line is, he shouldn't be a step backward, you know. And Greg's right. I mean, you're waiting for the game this weekend, and
I was going to say, we got some Razorback royalty jumping in here. Greg Thomas, starting quarterback at Arkansas. Love to have
Greg ought
him
to be sitting in my chair, man. He's the one that knows football. But yeah, Greg was very good quarterback, man. Very good. I just loved him when he played here, man. Came down to where I used to live and played basketball against me. Kicked our butts, and you know, I mean, it was ugly, but no, I mean, he, you know, Greg's a great guy. But anyway, no, I just think the biggest thing is they haven't. The portal has allowed them not to have to go through a full rebuild because, you know, and people make a big deal about losing players there. I don't consider it. I don't look so much at who they lose. I look at who they bring in because that's who's going to be on the field. You know, who's going to be on the field is who they've got. Trey Knox is not going to be playing for them Saturday. That's why I'm concerned with Barkeith Scum. You know, I mean, if KJ gets hurt, Malik Hornsby's not going to be playing for him. It's going to be Jacoby Criswell. So that's what I'm looking at. And that's, I mean, I think that's, you know, even Jaden Hazelwood and Matt Landers had great seasons, but they're not here. So now, Isaac Tesla, Andrew Armstrong, Tyrone Broden, and you know, and I love Isaiah Satana from last year.
Yeah,
Jaden Wilson may be the one that starts there. It looks like he might move in that line. If it were me, I'd start Isaiah. But regardless of that, Jaden, Bryce Stevens, those guys are going to play a lot of football regardless of who starts. You know, and. So we'll see, but they got three good transfer receivers there. I'm looking at Luke Hayes from the freshman class at tight end. Just a lot to like there. And as I said earlier about the offensive tackles, I don't think those guys are not talented. I think they're very talented, but I just think they're inexperienced. And Greg, all people would tell you the same thing I'm telling you, that the only way you get game experience, is put them in the game and let them play. Because you can practice till you turn purple, but if you to get game experience, the only way to get that is put them in the game and let them play, and hopefully they're what you think they are.
Yeah, and also Steven 1383 wants to know: is there a way that chance that Enos might be able to get KJ to 3,000 passing yards this year? And I think honestly, it ultimately turns into a game of balance more than anything else. Is the passing game setting up the run game setting up the passing game, and also that ultimately decides on what the defense is giving you that game. There may be a time where KJ only has 180 yards because they're stacking the back side of that defense up, but they're giving Rocket an ability they're only putting in 5 in the box, and so they're able to match up a lot better at the front in the trenches, where he might have 200 yards in a game, where you only need KJ to only pass for 180 yards in a touchdown.
Yeah. Sorry, people wonder why I'm doing. I was looking for the media guys to see how many pass for. But one thing too to add to that, yeah, I think he can get him to 3,000 to answer your question. But I think KJ has to play 12 games and not 10 to do that. I mean, you know, and KJ not beat up would pass for more. I do think you may see more passing with KJ this year than you did in the past, instead of less running. Not saying he won't run, but I think he will. Yeah. But I think it's going to be more trying to protect, keep him healthy, not just playing, but healthy, because he was beat up in some of the games, like the Liberty game. He played, but was beat up pretty badly. And but I think he can. To answer, the question is, can he get KJ to 3,000? Yeah, KJ plays 12 games. And as you said, a lot depends on the situation. I mean, they're going to be a balanced offense. They're not going to pass every down. You're not going to see that. But, yeah, I think he can. I just think KJ's got to stay healthy. I think the receivers have got to be what we think they are. And, depends on the situation. Because I think Rocket's going to rush for 1,500 yards or so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
And I don't think that another caveat to that is, does Arkansas get in did they start to put up some big leads early on with, Western Carolina, Kent State, possibly a BYU with them starting a new quarterback. You're looking at Florida International towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
With if Arkansas is able to, can make some headway in the first half, get a big lead, I don't think they're going to see Sam Pittman pull what he did last year in going more conservative. I don't think that that's the style that Dan Enos brings to the table either, is that if you've got these guys in a pigeonhole where you are able to, put your foot on their neck and finish the game, I think that they're going to do that this year and I think that's one of the things that Sam has also talked about, where he's learned from the first couple of years till now, is that maybe he might not be that guy that it's everybody's friend. He might just be saying, you know what, run the damn ball or pass the damn ball. This is what I'm saying because we need to do it. And I think that that's where you're going to see a difference this year too.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and Steven's talking about Coach Woodson. I'm going to tell you, Marcus is one of the best recruiters that's ever been here. He landed Selman Bridges. He landed Tay Lockett. I mean, that's just two right there. That's two studs. And I mean, the guy can recruit and can coach. And that goes back to what I said earlier about, I think, and mostly when I say I think the coaching staff is better than last year, is I'm talking about the philosophy of T-Will for 4-man front. And then I think the secondary coaches are better. I thought Michael Shear was a good linebacker coach.
Yeah.
But T-Will is the coordinator, and I like the 4-man and aggressive defense. 4-man front and aggressive defense better than I did the 3-man front and the more read, react, slow defense. The secondary coaches, I always felt like Barry's specialty was linebackers, Barry Odoms. I like the secondary coaches, Woodson and Wilson. I think they've upgraded there. I think it'll help with playing. And I like the staff. I like the team. But Woodson, he's a great coach, man. That guy can recruit. I mean, he's one of those you want to do what you can to keep him around for a while because he's going to get talent here. He's going to get talent. Just in the last three. You look at the 24 class, Selman Bridges, and I'm not going to name them all, but Selman Bridge, you look at 25, Marcus Wimberly, 26, Tay Lockett. Those are secondary guys, man. And I mean, that's stuff. That's how you get better in the secondary. You go get you some stud players, man, because when you don't, you can't win the Arkansas Derby, Kentucky Derby, and Arkansas Derby and stuff with a donkey, man. You got to have a thoroughbred. So that's what you do it, man.
So, and also another thing too is that, and I'll let you read that. And there was what John Everett said about the kid from Batesville. One of the things that is going to help Arkansas on the front seven is that you don't have 3 down linemen with 2 stunning linebackers. Now you've got 4 down linemen with 2 linebackers or 3, depending on where the hog sits. And where they're able to stunt more, they're able to have guys, zip into that 0 gap or that A gap or the B gap and have a quicker guy run past a guard that between that guard tackle spot there also, where you might not have had that last year because there's more speed on that front 7 now.
Yeah, there's more speed, more experience. I mean, there's a lot of, you lose Bumper and Drew, but because Bumper was hurt last year so much, Paul played about as much as he did last year. I watched Drew Sanders last night, man. He hasn't missed a beat. He took his game to the Denver Broncos and missed a step. I mean, first drive, he was making every play for the Broncos against the Rams. But I mean, Antonio Greer's played a lot of games. Jaheim Thomas has played a lot of games. Not at Arkansas, but they've still played a lot of games. And there again, they've got some good young linebackers. That's one thing Michael did. He left the linebacker room in a lot better shape than it was when he took over, is what I'm trying to say. And so I feel good about this team, Jason. We'll know more after Saturday. We're not going to know all of it after a Saturday against Western Carolina. We're not going to know all, but we're going to know more. And, and I suspect some of the things we've talked about will be proven. We speculate some of the things we've speculated that will be positives will turn out to be positive. There may be one or two hiccups along there that we think, well, maybe they're not quite what we thought they were there. So that's how it works in football. But even at that, you can't draw complete conclusions either way, good or bad, after one game. But we'll see what happens Saturday, and then. But I'm just looking forward to it, simply because it'll give us a starting point. Because right now the starting point was preseason football, very little access. As far as seeing practice, we see 20, 30 minutes. I mean, a lot of that is basically nothing.
That's just
drills. I mean, you don't get that much out. I know some of them build depth charts and they do all this crap off that. And I mean, we don't even see when they're doing a lot of the team stuff, how they're really lining up. And, if that's your thing, that's fine. But I mean, we don't see that much, and really to know that much. But we'll see come game time, and we'll see more the following week. We'll see more against BYU.
Most definitely.
I'm looking forward to seeing the game Saturday, getting it started, and go from there.
So heading into week 1, were there any injuries or updated statuses that we got from Sam at his press conference on Thursday, I do believe? Do you think there's going to be any, I want to say, hit to any of the offense or defense that we might see going into game 1?
He's talked about, he felt like the only player that was out for sure was Sam Mbake, the wide receiver, who's out for the season. But, I suspect, I still think Antonio Greer. I mean, you've got some guys, Jaden Wilson's beat up. I mean, you've got some guys that we'll see how they turn out. But right now, I guess Mbake is the one guy that's out for sure. But I bet there's one or two more that don't play. We'll see if Antonio Greer plays, because he's missed a lot. Jashad Stewart's missed a lot of time. I don't even know what's wrong with him. So I don't think Sam has said. Maybe he has.
I haven't heard him mention anything.
I've got every press conference, the transcript of every press conference, and I don't remember anything in there about. But I know at practice we see Jashad over on the side working. We've seen Greer a lot. We've seen Luke. What's his name? The Brown kid from Tennessee, the offensive lineman. I believe his name is Luke Brown, but I'm going blank on his name for some reason. I don't know. There's a couple others been over.
Yeah, Luke Brown. Yeah, from Paris.
Yeah, big time. Supposed to be probably going to be a big time offensive lineman in time.
Yeah.
He's been hurt a lot, but I've seen him over a lot. Jashad, Antonio.
And Sam thinks that
Joey Sue has been over there a lot, hurt. He's been over there. I don't know what's wrong with him, but he's been over there. That's one they weren't mentioning. People were asking me why, and that's because he's out. He hasn't been practicing. But there's been some of those guys that, not all those have been reported. There's been some of those guys that have been on the sideline quite a bit. But Stewart is the one that I'm not sure what. But Greer, we'll see. I mean, but I don't think they're going to be any key. Of course, they got another week of practice. You got what? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and a
Wednesday.
Thursday,
Friday,
4 or 5 practices before the game, so anything can happen. But I mean, I think they pretty well used the physical part of it. I don't think they're going to try to do too much to get anybody hurt. Not that they try to get anybody ever hurt, but I think they're going to be pretty cautious this week and try to go in with what they've got and take a lot off the players, because they're pretty beaten down from practicing every day. So I think now the deal is get them fresh, ready for Saturday. It's going to be hot in Little Rock. I think the temperature is supposed to be back, even if it's only 85 or 90. That's still pretty hot on that. I believe they've got a turf field out there now, so
you can add a solid 10 degrees when you're on the field like that too. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's turf. I should know that, and I'm almost certain it's turf down in Little Rock. But anyway, so you add 10 to 20 degrees there. So it's going to be hot. It's not going to be cool, but it'll be just hot for the other team. It's not just hot on the Arkansas side, and the other side it's 72 and the air conditioning turned on. I mean, it's on both sides, so it evens out. But
they got 72 and air conditioning now in the indoor practice facility. They got that AC up and running now, finally, after years and years.
Yeah, they do. I just hope that how do I say that? I hope Sam doesn't overuse that. In fact, that And then when they get out in the games, they're not going to be in that 72 and air conditioned building. I don't want them to overuse that. I get where he's coming from on that, but I don't know. We'll see. I just think, I don't know. We'll see. I'll leave it at that. We'll see.
What's crazy to me is we were over at a practice here a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to Bob Holt for a second, and he said, what's really funny is that he was down at a track meet in Alabama, and they had to move everybody to the indoor practice facility for the football team. He said, and this was 20 years ago, and it was hot and it was muggy. And he says, we walked into the indoor facility. He said, it was nice and cool. He said, I just don't he said, I'm glad that they have it now, but he said, I wonder what took so long. And I don't know what goes into all of that and what the decisions are that made, but I'm sure that the players are glad that they at least have some refuge if they need you to have it.
Yeah, and I don't think practicing when it's 131 degrees heat index outside does you any favors. I mean,
doesn't anybody any good.
That's just, it's been, people got to understand, there for last week I think virtually every day, it broke a record for the hottest day in the history of that day in Arkansas. In Arkansas, in other words, Thursday was the hottest it's ever been on that day. Mm-hmm. That day, Wednesday, the hottest it's ever been. That day. You're out there at 100. I know. I want to say it was last Sunday, maybe it was Saturday. One day last week, I'm watching TV, and they said the heat index in Bella Vista was 131 degrees, and I mean. Oh. You're out in that. It does you no good.
No. Also, Addison Book said he almost called the Hawaii Vanderbilt game last night for the upset, and that was. I was wondering if Vanderbilt was even going to be able to get that stadium renovated in time, or at least playable for this game. It looks like they did, of course, but that was
by 7. Did they win by 7, I believe?
I do believe so. Let me double check on that.
31-24, maybe, something like that.
That sounds about right. Hold on, give me just a second here. I'm looking that up, and if y'all got that score too, throw it up there. But it was good to see. It was good to see football back in it. So back in full swing here, but. Now my ESPN is taking a crap on me here. But anyway, so Addison almost got that one right. John Everett said that the high temperature shortened practices, but I know that Sam talked about that they wanted to go outside last week. They wanted to get more acclimated this week, and that kind of brings me up to my last topic before we get out of here. Is game week prep for the old and the new guys, and there's upwards of 40 guys that have never been through a walkthrough for Arkansas. They've been through walkthroughs with their high school or their other college. But this presents a little bit of a unique opportunity because when they go down to Little Rock for a home game, it's a little bit different than do the walkthrough up here on, where they go and stay in a hotel and they do a team meal and they do an outing that Friday evening and then bus back to Fayetteville. This is busing down and then busing back and forth too.
Yeah, we'll see how we'll see how this game plays out Saturday in Little Rock. I hope there's a good crowd there. The last few years, the crowd hasn't been as big and good as it used to be. Man, for example, we had Greg on here earlier, or he was posting when Greg played. Man, it was, and then even when Little Rock has not been the same since Bobby Petrino left. When John L. came in that next year, I mean, Bobby had the LSU game down there with Ryan Mallett throwing to Kobe Hamilton and stuff like that. Man, that was a wild place. But the next year, when the last year's Bobby was here, the next year John L. came in, they lost some games down there. I mean, and it's just never been the same in Little Rock since then. Brett referred to it as a road game. It never really took off under him. Like a lot of things here, but
that would have been a hard road to hoe. Boy.
It hasn't been the same. And Chad was a disaster wherever they played at. I mean, that was a total disaster. I don't remember if Chad ever. I'm trying to remember if Chad ever coached game there. I know he coached the red-white game there one spring when it was cold as it could be. But when they played Missouri down there, Barry Lundy was the interim coach. And I'm thinking maybe the year before that,
I don't think
the reason they played the red-white game is because they didn't have a gamer. I'm thinking Chad may have never been the head coach at Little Rock in a game.
I think they were doing renovations here, and that's why they moved it to Little Rock.
Yeah,
and that was the only one that he had coached down there. And then after that, they didn't have any other. And then I think it was the Missouri game.
Yeah, and that was Barry Lundy was the interim head coach.
Barry's game, and that was it. No, he never coached
for sure. So it would have been the year before. But so but I do remember that red-white game. I had a broken ankle. It was cold. Of course, I had shorts on, but man, it was brutal. They closed the parking lot before I got there. So I had to park quite a ways away on crutches and shorts, and it was so brutally cold. But it was a mess. But anyway, but it hadn't been the same since Bobby Petrino, Houston Nutt, Danny Ford, Jack Crow, even all of those guys. Holtz when they coached here, Hatfield, Kenny Hatfield. That was a great place to play. I lived in Mean at the time when a lot of those guys, not Nutt, but before Nutt, all but one year of Dave Ford, I lived in Mena, which was about 150 miles from Little Rock, about 150 miles from Fayetteville. Back then, the interstate, at first it didn't, you had to get on to Alma and come up 71. Finally, it got to Mountainburg. You could go to Mountainburg, then get off the interstate and get on 71. It cut out a few miles going to Mountainburg, and it was a lot easier drive for me from Mena to go to Little Rock. And so I love the Little Rock games then, but it's a lot different now. But hopefully Saturday's a good atmosphere. It's the opening game. It's not, and this people should be excited about this team, Jason. I mean, I think they've got a legit chance to win 8 or more games. I mean, they could lose some games, but I think they've got a legit chance to win 8 or more games. And if you do that, we'll see how they turn out. But people should be excited about this team. I actually think they're pretty good. I may be wrong, and I'm not trying to do. I'm not trying to be a homer when I say that, but I really think they can win 8 or more games. Sure, I like the talent. I love KJ at quarterback, Rocket. You got a deep running back room. I think adding Jacoby takes away your biggest fear of KJ getting hurt. I think Jacoby could come in there and run most or all the offense, maybe all of it.
I think you can too. Yeah.
So we'll see.
Definitely. Also, Addison Book had thrown in there. He said that odds Florida State upsets over under points margin of LSU. I think that's going to be a very tight game, just to say the least. Just because Florida State with Mike Norvell, they seem to be on the uptick offensively. Now defensively, not so much because we got their guy. But you look at LSU with their returning quarterback
Daniels. He's good.
With Daniels and Brian Kelly doesn't just put out crap teams. I mean, they're going to be solid again this year. So I think that it's something to definitely look at.
Yeah, game that has nothing to do with the SEC or anything. I'm interested in is Colorado and TCU. I'm anxious to see how that turns out. I just kind of anxious to see how Prime does at Colorado and how Kendall Briles and TCU do with the high expectations because there's nowhere for them to go but down after going to the national championship game. So I've got an interest in that Colorado, and I know it's going to be going on when Arkansas is playing Western Carolina, so I'm not going to get to see it, and that's fine. I'd rather be at Arkansas, but I've got an interest in that game too, TCU and Colorado.
Yeah, I noticed that there were also, like Addison had mentioned too, there's a lot of great high school football games in the state Friday. Bryant, they used a big second half to beat Benton in the Salt Bowl. Rogers, they trounced Little Rock Southwest. Daryl Patton coming back up to Northwest Arkansas. Bentonville went over and shut out, I think it was Booker T.
No, it's Broken Arrow. They went over and
Broken Arrow. That's right. Yeah.
And that's
Bentonville West just
Broken Arrow used to be a powerhouse, but apparently they're not.
They got some good players too this year.
Yeah, Bentonville's C.J. Brown is people sleep on him because he's a
he had a 64-yard touchdown pass the first play of the second half against Bentonville or against Broken Arrow.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that a lot of people know is he can also chuck the pigskin around too.
Yeah, he's a good ball player, man. I mean, great kid, great ball player. And I'm telling you, C.J. Brown is people sleep on him because they're
legit.
Courtney and Ash Bethel Roman are 4-stars, and they're very good. But people sleep on CJ because he's a 3-star. But I'm telling you, they've got 3 stud wide receivers in that class, and he's one of them.
Book also said that Greene County Tech beat Paragould 6-4. Are you sure that wasn't baseball?
Football, man. I mean,
oh my gosh.
That looks like the 4 looks like a New York Yankees score. Well, I don't know if I can get 4 runs, but man, that's a low-scoring game. And Greg's right. One time it was the greatest atmosphere, and that was just recent. Like I said, that goes. It's not. We're not talking 100 years ago.
No.
When Bobby Petrino was here,
now
they had improved the stadium here, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But Arkansas had 2 really good atmospheres to play in when late as Bobby Petrino. But once Bobby left, like I said, John L. was a disaster. They lost games down there, and people discouraged with the program. It was just a disaster. I mean, you smile, getting beat 56-0. Then Brett referred to it as a road game, and he just never. He tried to blame it on the media. That's bull crap. I was there when he said that. He called it a road game. Then, tried to backtrack on that. And I was sitting right at the press conference and heard that. And it just seemed like it turned people off. And they had an up and down. They lost to Toledo down there, even with that 2015 team, because I know that was my birthday. And I'm sitting there watching them lose to Toledo. It just hasn't. Part of it, Greg, I think it's just there's been some bad coaching here during that spell. And you bring in Chad Morris. You went through John L., Brett Bielema, and Chad Morris. I mean, I don't know if they'll ever get that atmosphere back in Little Rock. I mean, people have gotten down on Little Rock, but part of it was they're playing worse games down there, and it's just the coach is just bad.
Yeah.
You know? But
it has been.
Sam's been a good coach. Sam is a good coach. This should be a pretty good team. It's not the best, maybe the best of opponents, but it is the opening game. So I will be disappointed if them stands are not pretty full Saturday. I don't know if they will be, but if they don't sell it out, I don't think that's a good sign for War Memorial, because there's no excuse to not sell out a 50-something seat stadium. A season opener. I don't care who the opponent is. You're going to see Arkansas for one thing, and see what they've got this year. There's some excitement around this program and this team.
There is. One of the just a note really quick too. Arkansas had a lot of great games in that Arkansas-Oklahoma State series that they always played in Little Rock, and those were always fun games too.
I was down there when they played USC, and Dennis Winston hit Anthony Davis, knocked the ball up in the stands, and I caught it. I was right there by it. I don't think I caught it. But the ball, was coming right there by me in the stands. I wasn't a sports writer then. I was just there as a fan. And, we're sitting there maybe second row or something, third row. And I remember the ball, Dennis Winston hit him. They just put him out of his misery. He hit Anthony Davis, man, and put the ball. They beat Southern Cal down there. I've been there when they beat Texas, and they poured buckets of water. It was raining. They caught buckets. I don't know where they got the buckets, but they had buckets of water. They poured on the Texas players that were leaving the field. There's been some great games. As I said, when I lived in Mena, that's what I lived. When Greg played here, I lived in Mena. And it was 150 miles, about roughly 150 miles. Little Rock, 150 to Fayetteville. And it was much easier to drive to Little Rock than it was Fayetteville. And the stadiums were, War Memorial probably bigger than Razorback Stadium. But it's changed. And, but hopefully, I just don't see us asking too much to get 50-something thousand out there Saturday in that crowd. It's going to be warm, but I don't think it's going to be 100 and something degrees. What I've seen is like 90, 85, 90, 95.
Yeah, somewhere right around there. 90, 85, 90 degree range. Yeah.
You're sitting there at 90 degrees and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I just don't. I don't think there's any reason not to have 50-something thousand show up Saturday. If they don't, then it's going to be a disappointment to me.
Yep, it is. Well, everybody, I want to thank you again for joining us, commenting, joining our discussion here with myself and Otis here on the Razorback Football Report with Otis Kirk. This has been our game week edition here on hogville.net YouTube Live. Stay tuned here. In about 30 minutes, we'll turn right back around, and we will have the Razorback Diamond Report with Dudley Dawson. And I'm your host, Jason Pattyson. Thanks, Otis, for joining me.
Thank you for having me on here, man. I'll see you this week.
See you this week.